This $30 prepaid smartphone is ready to emulate all your favorite systems from Atari all the way to 3DS, making it one of the most versatile pieces you should add to your gaming collection. With a little bit of elbow grease, we can transform it from a boring phone to a legitimate handheld. So sit back and relax while I walk you through the parts and software required to create the perfect $30 handheld. Look, I want to be upfront. It's not the most powerful retro emulation device you can get, but for the price, I haven't seen anything that's comparable. Remember, it's $30. And that $30 device is the Motorola Moto G Play 2024, which features the Snapdragon 680, a processor that is pretty well respected in the Android emulation community. Since our device only comes with 64 gigabytes of storage, I added a 128 gigabyte micro SD card from Amazon. This will let us store all our games and emulators on the SD card, so if we ever want to change devices, all we have to do is swap over the SD card and we are up and running. While we were at Amazon, we grabbed the Gamesir X5 Lite for $35. If you don't mind the wait, you can get it on AliExpress for about $20. With the gamepad purchase, that's all the hardware we need. Tallying it up, we spent $75 and it could have been as low as $60 for this setup, and I think it looks pretty good. So now let's talk about the software needed for you to have all your games in this slick game launcher, as well as set it as your home app so you can get a true console experience without breaking your verisimilitude. On the software side, we will need to make a one-time purchase for $6, but I think it's well worth it to take the experience to the next level, and I promise it's the last thing we need to purchase. I'm not going to make a step-by-step guide here because there's already a phenomenally simple and well-made guide by my friend Russ over at Retro Game Force. I will link the guides down below, but there are a few choices I made differently to get the most out of emulation performance. Okay, first, you'll want to follow Russ's guide titled Android Handheld Starter Guide and make these few app substitutions, which will be linked down below. Instead of Azahar, you'll want to grab Citra MMJ. Instead of Dolphin, you'll want to grab Dolphin MMJR. For both of these, you'll just go to the links down below and download the APK on your Android device. Then, when you're setting up your alternative emulators in Emulation Station, you'll set these as your preferred emulators. With those emulators, I had much better performance. That's why I made these changes. Okay, at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 28 seconds, you can exit out that video since the way to import apps and set it as a home launcher has changed. You can hop over to his next video titled Big ESDE Update Android Starter Guide. It's also linked down below. Jump ahead to 8 minutes and 12 seconds in and watch it till the end. After you watch these videos, you will have everything set up and ready to go. Now, it's time to show this thing in action. So, for the benchmarks, let's start off easier, then work our way up to the more demanding systems. As expected, the Game Boy was not an issue at all. If you're interested in that certain game where you fight monsters against each other, rest assured, it runs without breaking a sweat. I'd love to show it to you, but those guys over at Nintendo scare me. Instead, here's Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and yeah, it runs great. No issues here at all, and that is the case for almost all of the 8 and 16 and 32-bit systems. Next, let's check out Nintendo DS, and yeah, this is another system that is no sweat. I like to configure it so the screens are side by side when playing on a handheld, and since we have a touchscreen, it's really easy to interact with the touchscreen whenever you need to. Now, this is where things get interesting. This is the first console we had to start optimizing for. After tweaking some settings and using the European ROMs known as PAL ROMs, we were able to get Cruisin' USA and Mario 64 running with very little slowdowns. PAL ROMs run at 50 FPS rather than 60, which means it's easier to run overall. Stick to those European ROMs and you'll have very little issues with this system. For the PlayStation 1, things were mostly the same as the 64. When using PAL ROMs and tweaking some settings, you should be able to play through the majority of the PlayStation 1 library. Playing Crash Team Racing again took way too many hours away from me. This was the first game I remember playing all the way back with my mom and dad when I was a kid. If things were interesting after the Nintendo 64, this takes it up a notch. I have been dying to play Pokemon X for years, and when I loaded up the regular Citra emulator, performance was not good at all. But switching to the Citra MMJ, however, let me run it with very minimal slowdowns. I leave for vacation in a week, and this is exactly what I'll be playing on the beach. So these last two consoles represent the limits of what we can do on a system like this. That being said, we were able to get one of the most demanding games on the console to run at about 25 to 30 FPS. But by underclocking the CPU and using a PAL ROM, it feels smoother than it normally would at that speed. Look, I don't think it's the ideal way to play God of War 2, but I wouldn't say it's a horrible way to play it. For GameCube, it took some tinkering, but after a while and trying multiple emulators, we were able to get Wind Waker running at about 25 to 30 FPS like the PS2. But again, with underclocking, it felt smoother with a little slowdown here and there. I would again classify it as both playable and less than ideal. We also got Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance running just to see what a heavy title would be like, and it runs. But again, certainly not ideal here. Remember, please use PAL ROMs for best performance. One note, when using Dolphin MMJR, launch the emulator rather than using the GameCube tab to get your save states to work properly. So that's what you can expect performance-wise. It's not going to emulate through the Nintendo Switch, and for $30, I think that's fair. For other $60 to $75 Android handhelds, you will be lucky to get this kind of performance. For example, the TrimUI Smart Pro struggles to run Cruis'n USA at full speed, while we were able to get it running. One last thing I wanted to mention, since it is a smartphone at the end of the day, is that it does have good Wi-Fi with both 2.4 and 5 GHz connections, making it a good candidate for game streaming, either over Game Pass or using apps like Moonlight or Parsec to stream from your PC. With all that being said, I really want to hear from you. Do you think this cheap handheld is worth putting together? Personally, I am very much looking forward to having this with me on vacation and for playing games around the house, either on the device or streaming. Anyways, that brings us to the end of the video. If you liked it, please consider liking and subscribing as it helps push the video out to more people like you. Many thanks for your continued support, and until next time, stay lucky. Yeah.